The first man walked through his perfect domain, a living crown placed upon the perfect world. He worked, he learned, he named. Yet, the vast echo of his own voice in the silence of his spirit grew louder than the calls of the wild. He saw the lions paired, the doves mated, the rivers flowing into the sea, all things found their complement. The perfection of the garden was insufficient without a mirror for Adam's soul, a co-regent to share his joy and his burden. The divine thought resonated through Eden. Gentle, yet decisive. It is not good that the man should be alone. The stage was set for the final, most intimate act of creation. A need was perceived, a solution prepared, and Adam, unaware, walked toward the place of his rest. Adam awoke to a presence that eclipsed the sun. Gone was the ache of solitude, replaced by an awareness so complete it felt like a homecoming. Standing before him was the answer to every question he hadn't known how to ask. His own flesh. His own bone, yet refined. His eyes, the first to gaze upon all creation, now rested upon her, radiant, perfect, and utterly familiar. He reached a hand toward her, not in mastery, but in recognition of equality. His spirit now bone of my bones, and the first flesh of words of poetry. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Soul, a capacity for relationship, and a moral compass. Male and female, they were created, an expression of unity and duality, signifying the partnership required for true stewardship. To them was granted the highest commission, dominion. They were made keepers of the entire earth, entrusted with the care and cultivation of all life, tasked with naming and ordering the cosmos they inhabited. This act was the ultimate declaration of worth, a profound responsibility, and the greatest blessing. They were the final, most complex expression of life, made to reflect the very source and meaning of all things. The earth awaited its caretakers, but paradise was not without its shadow, a presence, ancient and more subtle than any beast of the field, watched from the heart of the garden. It was the serpent, a creature of brilliant intellect and silent cunning. It saw Eve in her innocence and approached not with aggression, but with a question, a seed of doubt planted in the fertile ground of a curious mind. Hath God indeed said, "Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden"? The words were a gentle challenge, a whisper against the absolute. Eve, reciting the command, engaged the query, and in doing so, opened the door to debate. The serpent countered, its voice a hypnotic promise of power and enlightenment. Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Suddenly the fruit was no longer a prohibition, it was a prize, good for food, pleasant to the eyes, and a thing to be desired to make one wise. Eve was overcome by the promise. She took the fruit, and with the sound of a single, decisive bite, the world changed. Her eyes were opened, and her first thought was for her partner. She sought out Adam, and he, looking upon her, saw not the risk of death, but the tragedy of separation. With a love that transcended obedience, he accepted the same fruit from her hand and ate. In that moment, the knowledge of good and evil flooded their senses. They saw their own innocence stripped away. Shame, a foreign sensation, entered the world, compelling them to hide from the very light that had given them life. The air grew thick with a new emotion, fear, and in the cool of the day, they heard the voice of the Creator, and for the first time, it inspired terror. "Adam, where art thou?" "From the shadows," the man answered, his voice trembling. "I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked." The realization was immediate and terrifying. Questioning was direct, the excuses immediate. The man blamed the woman, and the woman blamed the serpent. The perfect unity was shattered, and so the sentences were passed. To the serpent, a curse to crawl upon the dust. To the woman, sorrow in conception and a fractured harmony with her husband. And to the man, the ground itself was cursed. Toil, sweat, and hardship would now be his lot, a constant reminder of his mortality until his return to the dust from which he was made. The age of innocence was over. The age of consequence had begun. Yet even in judgment there was mercy. Before banishment, the Creator covered their nakedness with garments of skin, a necessary sacrifice, the first foreshadowing of atonement. But the ultimate command had to be fulfilled. They could not remain in the garden, lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat and live forever in their fallen state. So Adam and Eve were led out of the perfect sanctuary. The door closed behind them on the sound of rushing waters and lush foliage. Outside the gates, the world was unforgiving, requiring labor and pain. And lest any attempt return, the entrance was guarded by the cherubim, wielding a flaming sword that turned every way. The man and the woman walked into the dust of their new reality, exiled from perfect love, carrying the knowledge of good and evil, and the hope of redemption. Outside the gate, the world was untamed. Life was a struggle against thorns and thistles, a daily echo of their great loss. By the sweat of his brow, Adam worked the unforgiving ground, and in sorrow, Eve brought forth new life. They learned pain, hardship, and mortality, but in their exile they also learned resilience. They found a new kind of grace, not in a perfect garden, but in each other, in the shared labor, and in the faces of their children. Though the gate to paradise was closed, the story of humanity was not over. It was just beginning. The Creator had promised that from the seed of the woman would come one who would bruise the serpent's head, a whisper of redemption sown into the very fabric of their consequence. And so they faced the rising sun, no longer as innocents in a garden, but as the progenitors of a world carrying the weight of the past and the unwavering hope for a future yet to be written. And so on the seventh day, the work of creation was complete. The heavens and the earth, in all their vast array, were finished. This was not a rest born of exhaustion, but of completion. A deliberate cessation from work, a moment to behold and appreciate the perfection of what had been made. In this act, the seventh day was blessed and made holy, set apart as a time for contemplation and connection. It became the final, essential piece of creation itself, a divine rhythm of work and rest, woven into the very fabric of the universe, a perpetual reminder that peace is the ultimate purpose of all labor.